Hello all. With the help of Mothra, the data bunny of science, we look at the representation of the poor in the media. The introduction is linked here. This is the third installment of character analysis for Kim Wexler from Better Call Saul. If you're interested in those, I'll link them in the description and feel free to like, subscribe, comment below, wherever the wind may take you. One aspect that this show does well in comparison to many others is showing that the stress of not having a safety net consciously and subconsciously affects decision making. If Kim fails, she's on her own. She's more willing to speak up for Jimmy, but hesitates when the spotlight is on her. Since she barely speaks about her own family, whether positive or negative, it's likely that they won't or can't help her. When that small glimpse of her relationship with her mom is shown in Season 5, it's probable that from a young age, she was aware that her mom was unreliable. That tenacity of having to grow up faster and be responsible at a younger age can make a person more resilient, but can also increase stress or cause anxiety. From a biological standpoint, according to Ying's article linked below, children from disadvantaged homes hit puberty at a younger age than those from rich families, and one cause is stress. Being in poverty is stressful. This type of situation has also been linked to health issues later in life, such as obesity and heart health issues. Physically, the cards are stacked against Kim if she grew up in poverty, not to mention she is also one of the few lawyers we see smoke regularly. Outside of that, those who grew up in hardship have to grow up quicker. This stereotype that young adults only sit around and play video games is something that really only applies to families that have a higher socioeconomic status and economic privilege. In Bonnyman Evans' article linked below, quote, "Growing up too soon can benefit kids by, for example, helping them take more mature approaches to solving problems, but it can also lead to negative consequences such as depression and an earlier onset of substance abuse," end quote. With all this in mind, it's that much more impactful that Kim has come out of her situation to work her way up to being a lawyer. Part of having to mature at a younger age is developing the ability to see the big picture and foresee that a seemingly small decision can end up having a bigger impact down the road. On the other hand, sometimes the decision that feels like a big deal isn't actually that big in the scheme of things. She recognized that if she stayed in Nebraska, her future was bleak, and was able to put steps in motion to obtain that dream of being an attorney. In Season 3, Kim mentions that To Kill a Mockingbird inspired her to be a lawyer, and she was able to carry out that plan. She had to work in the mailroom for 6 years, but having a foot in the door of a prestigious law firm is a smart way of increasing the odds of being an attorney in the future, since it would be one of the few ways she can build those professional connections. When dealing with the Kettlemans in Season 1, Kim has the stress of clients that aren't exactly on the ball, and she has to try and maintain them as clients. She is aware that if she doesn't make it work, she gets punished. The Kettlemans' way of embezzling money is a testament to how this couple was unable to fully think ahead or look at the big picture. For Kim, she knows that losing these clients affects her overall plan to be partner. She is able to see past the immediate situation while they are not. One example of this is when Jimmy is aware of Nacho wanting to steal the money from the Kettlemans, and he tries to warn Kim. She understands quickly that if he is bringing this up, there is a reason he's doing so. After the Kettlemans come back from their camping trip, Kim is visibly frustrated that their judgment is clouded by an inability to consider future consequences. In the start of the second season, Jimmy is struggling with being a lawyer and doesn't have a plan. Kim struggles with this because to her not having a plan is a very bad idea.
I've exhausted every evil plan in my filing cabinet, from A to Y.
A to Y?
Yeah, A to Y, you know the alphabet.
Kim knows that if she fails, there is no failsafe. Jimmy might be able to get help from his brother Chuck, but it's not guaranteed. So, when Jimmy takes the job at Davison, Maine, she tries to encourage his decision, even giving him a sentimental gift. However, when she finds out he fabricated evidence for a pro bono client, her mood changes. It frustrates her that he has this rare opportunity at a good career, but is willingly putting it in jeopardy. The opportunity for a good job or career is so much harder for those of us at the lower rungs of the socioeconomic ladder. It's harder for us to make those professional connections we need in order to get our foot in the door. So the pressure to keep a good job is an additional stress that Kim has to contend with. If we grew up without a failsafe, we learn that other people are not reliable. For Kim, her mom is not reliable, and I'll even throw in her cousin who stole from her grandma. We often see Kim doing everything. She does her own filing, writing, and other menial duties. Tasks that would normally be passed off to a paralegal or administrative assistant are things that she does herself. In episode 5, when Kim is sent to doc review and Jimmy tries to help her, she shuts him down and says, quote, "I dig myself out of this. You do your job, Jimmy. You don't save me, I save me." End quote. We grow up not asking for help because we've learned from experience that there is no help. We have to plan ahead, and not because we are inviting bad luck, but because there are far worse consequences if we don't. In episode 7 of season 2, when Kim is talking to Jimmy about her interview, she says she won't tell Howard about it without a letter in hand from Schweikert and Coakley first, especially after the Kettleman thing. Another additional stress for Kim is that Jimmy's actions affect her professional outlook. Because she was part of the influence to Howard to support Jimmy at Davis and Maine, when it backfired, Howard took out some of his frustrations on her by sending her to doc review. Even when she tries to fix it by bringing in Mesa Verde as a client, it doesn't matter, and she remains in doc review. Another thing to consider with Kim not accepting Jimmy's help is that she doesn't want to owe anyone. She owes HHM for law school, and she feels obligated to stay there and deal with all the situations that arise. If she doesn't ask Jimmy for help, she won't owe Jimmy. Kim mentions that she was fortunate to have a situation where the law firm paid for her education. It's part of why she is conflicted to leave, because if the situation doesn't work out, it's likely she owes that law firm out of pocket. Another consideration that was left out in a previous video is that there are times that a business will pay for your school in exchange for a certain number of years working for said company, and you don't have to pay the funds back, or it might be at a lower amount. It's possible that Kim might not have had to pay anything if she stays there for a particular number of years. When Rich says they would be willing to pay her debt as an incentive, I imagine she thought about the fact that she would then be indebted to his firm instead of HHM. Because Kim has presented herself as someone that is careful and plans ahead, it's shocking to Howard that she doesn't go to another law firm. While it would make sense to him and many viewers that this would be the smart decision, I don't think it's out of character. Jimmy describes Rich as Howard with a different name. It can be argued that he poisoned the well, but on the other hand, what about her reaction after the interview when she accidentally called Rich Howard? If she made this type of mistake at HHM, it's likely there would be very negative consequences, and she probably had a flash of a similar future at Schweikert and Coakley. If she branches out and shares the same office space as Jimmy, she has an idea of what to expect with him. Who knows how she would be seen at Schweikert and Coakley? What information have other attorneys from HHM said that could affect her work environment there? In the new office, Kim is doing all the work. Part of this is because she only has the one client, but it's another failsafe. If she doesn't hire a paralegal or an administrative assistant, she doesn't have to worry about losing pay that would in turn affect another person. She's trying to cut costs and keep the law office afloat. If she is completing all of the tasks for Mesa Verde, she can't place blame on another person if something goes wrong. Again, another failsafe. But on the other hand, it's what builds her self-confidence and helps her realize that she's amazing at her job and she does have the necessary skills to succeed. In episode 9 of season 2, when Jimmy's confronted with the accusation from Chuck about doctoring official documents, Kim says, quote, "I know he's not perfect and I know he cuts corners, but you're the one who made him this way. He idolizes you, he takes care of you, and all he ever wanted was your love and support, but all you've ever done is judge him. You never believed in him. You never wanted him to succeed," end quote. Even though she's talking about Jimmy, I think there's a bit of pain from her own situation. In a flashback when she worked in the mailroom, she really looks up to Chuck. Even though their job was to put together binders, she was reading the case and following it. Obviously, Kim doesn't cut corners, and certainly not at this point in the show, but the phrase, "you never wanted him to succeed," really stuck out to me. After being sent to doc review when she brought in Mesa Verde, she asked Chuck if she had a future at HHM. It always bothered me that he never really gave a straight answer, but Kim knew at this point in the series that Chuck worked to keep Jimmy from being hired on. I think she saw the writing on the wall. Time for Plan B. When Kim and Jimmy combine forces, so to speak, when it comes to handling Chuck during the hearing for Jimmy's law license, they work together. However, Kim is the more level-headed of the two, understanding that being calm and speaking less will work better in the long run. When she confronts Chuck about there being a copy of the tape, she doesn't let the way Chuck talks to her get to her and is able to confirm their suspicions. Had it been Jimmy, it's possible he would have been more reactive and likely more short-sighted in his response. Really, through the entire process, Kim thinks ahead. Circling back on the professional connections idea, part of Kim getting through school was working at the law firm because she has to think long-term about making connections. With working and going to law school at the same time, there's a little time to socialize and make those connections that could be beneficial in the future. So which students will be able to make those connections? I'll give you a hint. Usually not the poor kids. When you spend 20 hours or more a week working as a dishwasher, who knows how many hours studying, you're going to be at a disadvantage in creating those connections for who you know to give you that edge to get out of poverty. You know who else is usually working during college? Other poor kids. There is a camaraderie that grows from that, and in a sense like that between Kim and Jimmy. But those who are lucky enough to have their college paid for in a way that doesn't require them to work are going to have the privilege of having more time and opportunities in school to make professional connections. As far as things like unpaid internships, I know I couldn't afford to take time off from paid work to do that, and I made a large chunk of money in the summer. Just another item for poor people bingo. Kim is smart in that she was able to work her way up from the mailroom at the law firm. It's likely that was a very deliberate decision based on how she handles other situations and mentions her plans to make partner. Compare this to Howard, who continued in the same firm as his dad. Howard was born with access to connections. If we consider Chuck, he finished high school early and went to college early and, by all accounts, is a genius. I'll link a video here about the pressure to succeed as Chuck's history fits into that. Kim and Jimmy both started in the mailroom. In a flashback to this time, Jimmy is seen as making connections with everyone in the office regardless of ranking or title, though mostly with those who aren't one of the partners. Kim, however, is very focused on talking to Chuck or Howard to try and get an edge. She's not rude to the other people in the office, just focused differently than Jimmy. Season 3, Kim pushes back more against those professional connections and stands up for herself. When she asked Chuck about her future at HHM, she mostly listened and didn't challenge him. When Jimmy's hearing is going on, Kim is more assertive and doesn't let Chuck or Howard walk all over her. When Kim confronts Jimmy's brother about a duplicate tape, he is visibly annoyed when she interrupts him, something she would not have done earlier in the show. There's just something about the condescending way Chuck talks to her like she will always be beneath him. To be fair, he does kind of talk like that to everybody. After the Kettleman incident, Chuck recognizes that Kim is smart and does tell Howard she's wasted in doc review, but he doesn't go out of his way to fight for her. It's almost a passing comment that's barely noticed. Howard and Chuck seem to be aware of Kim's skill set, but neither go out of their way for her, another example of never depend on other people. During Jimmy's hearing, Kim focuses quite a bit on showing what Jimmy does to help his brother, aware that the professional side of things will be in Chuck's favor. With the board likely having bias toward Jimmy's brother, Kim focuses on how the relationship between the brothers colors the image they have in the professional realm. One of the things Chuck says is that, quote, "No matter who you are, actions have consequences." While he's focused this on Jimmy, it's hard not to think that Kim remembered Chuck blocking his brother from being hired, or how he didn't really fight to help Kim. Actions have consequences indeed, Mr. as an officer of the court. After Jimmy is confirmed to be on probation for a year, Kim and Jimmy discuss what to do with the office space. Jimmy wants to keep the space, but for Kim it's, quote, "4 walls and a door, why waste money on something we don't need?" Again, thinking ahead, considering what happens if she loses Mesa Verde or Jimmy can't pay his half. If she doesn't invest emotionally in the place, when it fails, it won't hurt as much. In a sense, hope for the best, expect the worst. Jimmy suggests Kim get an assistant, but this is another expense, and from the rest of the show, Kim usually does everything herself and isn't used to delegating. Plus, what happens if they can't cover costs for the office? If they can't keep the office, how will they be able to pay for someone to work there? Kim would then owe them, and there's also the possible guilt that would go with that because another person was willing to put their trust in working for them. In episode 8, when Kim is having lunch with Kevin and Paige, she sees Howard come to the same restaurant. Kim was willing to ignore the situation, but Howard immediately goes over and interrupts the conversation, telling them how Mesa Verde is lucky to have Kim. Kevin and Paige are both visibly annoyed to see him, but are cordial. What's so poignant in this situation, besides the awkwardness, is how he specifically points out that it was just yesterday she was logging hours in doc review and happy to see one of our proteges leaving the nest. On the surface, it can appear to be just a short little conversation that looks professional, though is awkward. However, it's a very understated, sneaky way of pointing out, hey, you're such a noob, and you did so well when you stayed at the bottom of the totem pole. You remember how you were in the mailroom, right? You remember how you should stay in your place and stop trying to aim higher, right? Why don't you stay in the box we made for you? At first, Kim lets this go. When she was at HHM, she usually didn't stand up for herself because of the repercussions, but this time is different. She writes out a check for the remainder, then mirrors Howard's mannerisms at his table when she gives him the check in front of his clients. When Howard confronts her after and explains that he now has to do damage control because of Jimmy, Kim tells him that it never set right with her that the debt she owed to HHM was forgiven when she left the firm. They argue a bit back and forth, and when Kim says Howard ignored Chuck's illness when it suited him, he is irate. Quote, I take you out of the mailroom, put you through law school, mentor you, you leave, stab me in the back, that's my fault, I'm not cashing this, end quote. It's a sort of closure. Symbolically, she has paid her debt and is free of HHM. One thing she didn't plan ahead for was getting in a car wreck. She overextended herself. According to the linked article from the National Safety Council, quote, about half of U.S. adult drivers admitted to constantly getting behind the wheel while feeling drowsy. About 20% admitted to falling asleep behind the wheel at some point in the last year. You just can't plan for things sometimes. Jimmy doesn't judge her for getting in the car or how she worked so much she barely slept. Kim is upset at herself, though, accepting that it was her choice to get behind the wheel exhausted. Francesca tells her that people die on the road all the time, and Kim was really lucky. Luck is not something poor people get often. When she is recovering, she takes out her calendar that is clearly full. Remember, always have a plan B. Traumatic experiences can affect us in many ways. For Kim, it was a reset. Her character softens and she is more willing to delegate tasks and have a paralegal complete items for her instead of doing it herself. She learned the hard way that she can't do everything, and when she tried, she was lucky enough to escape death. After the funeral in season 4, Kim speaks her mind to Howard about Chuck's estate. She doesn't just let things go anymore and work around them. She is confronting them head on. When she asks him why he told Jimmy it was his fault Chuck killed himself, Kim is enraged when he says, I owed it to him to tell him. She yells, quote, owed it to him? Did you tell Rebecca? That he intentionally set himself on fire? Just saved it for Jimmy, end quote. The word owe is something Kim is sensitive to. Why are Jim and Kimmy owed the harsher truth but not Chuck's ex-wife? Why is Jimmy owed this truth but not the truth about Chuck not wanting his brother at the firm? She basically calls Howard out for doing what only works in his benefit. In episode 5, Kim has started to take on some pro bono cases and at one point hangs up on Paige while she is helping a client. This would not have happened before. When Kim goes back to speak to Paige, she notices that she is less friendly and tells her the quote, we're not a client you hang up on, end quote. Kim gives an apology that's better than most YouTube ones I've seen. She doesn't give any excuses or add a but, just says sorry and it won't happen again. It's a small reminder to Kim that even though she has done all this work and effort for Mesa Verde, at the end of the day, she is still expendable. Always have a failsafe, though. She reaches out to Schweikert & Coakley and basically starts a banking division. This way, she can still maintain that professional connection with her client, but there are now more resources that can assist, and she doesn't have to overwork herself and can also do the pro bono work that she wants to do. Through most of the first 4 seasons, Kim usually sticks pretty close to the rules. If something happens down the road, she will be able to defend herself and know she has nothing to hide. In Babineau's case, the DA really sticks to the point of how he has priors. Other people can speak on the issues in the justice system. For this video, I want to focus on how this idea of people not changing strikes a nerve with Kim. She has worked hard to change herself and grow her professional career, and the way the DA is stuck on essentially a technicality, I think reminds her of Chuck. It's a mirror of how she worked so hard at HHM, yet would consistently get pushed down because of things beyond her control or a small mistake. Even though she is doing this partially because Jimmy asked, she is concerned about getting real justice for Babineau. She is willing to now push the boundaries and fabricate a narrative to ensure that happens despite the risk of being caught and having her law license at risk. Not necessarily that the end justifies the means, but that the world just isn't that black and white. In the case with Mesa Verde and changing legal documentation, I think this was more to get back in good graces with Paige and Kevin. If she is able to do the impossible, she can ensure that her reputation will be even more impressive to her clients, which in turn secures her position at Schweikert & Coakley to be partner. She played by the rules at HHM and it did not pay off, so her tactic to reach partner changes. I'll end with a brief item from Jimmy's hearing. Kim knows that Jimmy needs to mention Chuck because she's aware that the board still has this bias. I'm not going to go into my issues with the board and how they think sincerity should look because that's a whole can of worms. After Jimmy appeals and is told his license will be reinstated, he tells Kim his new plans and how he's going to use a different name. At first, she is happy because it's a good result for him and he has a plan, but I think it's also at this point some of her blinders come off and she is more apprehensive of what his future will be and, in a way, hers. There are some videos and articles that discuss if Jimmy is the influence on Kim and vice versa, but I think she has very much been her own person throughout the series. One of the mantras we're told growing up is that if you're honest, work hard, and try your best, You too can get out of poverty, but that is just not the reality. Kim's progression is just an example of how she started to understand that playing by the rules can only get you so far, and that at the end of the day, you have to be your own advocate and try to make sure that you have a backup plan. Thanks so much for making it this far. If you want more content like this, subscribe, ring the bell, and feel free to like or share. Until next time.